Choosing a Home by ginnyrules27, Chapter 59. The day had finally arrived. August 13th. Whatever the year was. The day all of Oradon had been anxiously waiting for. The day their king would marry his beloved bride. Of course, almost none of them knew that said king had already been married to said beloved bride, but that was no matter. Mal and Ben were more than happy to keep it a secret, even taking off their wedding rings when they went out in public, to avoid a ring tan revealing the fact that they had been wearing theirs for when they would need to be them removed for this wedding. There had been one time where Ben had accidentally called Mal his queen during an interview with Snow White, but thankfully Snow had said something about how amazing it was that they weren't even married, and Ben was already referring to Mal as his queen. How great it was to see the two of them so in love. Ben smiled as he got dressed in his room over at his palace. Chip, Amir, Akio and Haddy getting ready in Chip's old room. Yes, Chip had his own room at Beast Castle. Why wouldn't he? He was family after all. Plus, he had been called to babysit so many times, it was just safer for him to have his own room. Ben's parents had moved out of the castle over to the safe castle that was over in their grandfather's village. The place where his mother had lived for, granted a small, part of her life. And yes, the castle might have held some less than positive memories for his father. That was why Ben was building them a new castle over near Bell's Harbour. Mum and Dad can decide where they want to live once it's complete, Ben thought as he pulled on his suit jacket. If they decide to move, the old castle can be used as a safe castle in case Oradon gets attacked again. It'll be good to have some place to... Wait, Mel can turn into a dragon. She'd probably never want to be put to the side. In fact, she'd probably argue it'd be better for me to go to the safe castle even though I'm now immortal. Yeah, that had been a fun conversation to have with his wife. Congratulations, you're married, and you will also never die. Well, scratch that, death by unnatural means like stabbing or poisoning was still possible, but death by old age? Sickness? And Ben knew that Mal would never let anyone close enough to him to potentially stab or poison him. Oh yeah, and at some point I'll stop aging too, Ben thought with a small sigh. He loved Mal, and he was more than happy to live forever with her. But it still took some getting used to, the fact that he would live forever. Though, there is a lot less pressure now to have kids. We can do it when we want, not when people want us to or because we need an heir. You okay in there, Benji? Chip asked, walking in and putting Ben out of his thoughts. Yeah, Ben nodded. Just thinking is all. Chip chuckled. You're thinking about the fact that in less than 24 hours, you'll be able to say that Mal's your wife without worrying that someone overheard you? Well, no, but now that you bring that up, Ben said, grinning from ear to ear. God, I can't believe I'll be married. Well, officially, after today. I just wish I could see Mal, you know? Ah, yes, but you can't, Chip nodded. 'Tis tradition, after all. You don't want bad luck to befall your wedding. Stupid tradition, Ben muttered as he fixed his tie. I'm marrying a godling, after all. I'm pretty sure bad luck won't befall us. Don't piss off the fairies, Ben, Chip told him. You never know where bad luck is going to strike, after all. I know, Chip, trust me, Ben nodded. But still, I think Mal and I will be okay in terms of our luck. I didn't get to see her before the lake wedding, so is it too much to ask that I see her before this one? There's a lot more pressure here with dignitaries from all over. Even most of the gods of Olympus will be there. I think Mal said that Lady Aphrodite was looking forward to it. Chip chuckled. You know, I think after today, you'll be fine leaving off the titles, especially since you're marrying into the family. I guess, but I'd rather not risk offending anyone, Ben told him. Always a good strategy, Chip nodded. Anyway, you all set? I think it's time we head over to the cathedral so someone can get married. How are we going? Ben asked. I know there was talk of going via carriage like Mal, but there was talk about going via limo. You know, I'm going to ignore the fact that you guys forgot to plan transportation for the groom and offer my services, Haddy said as he walked in, followed by Mira and Akio. Your services? Ben asked. Haddie didn't answer, but instead enveloped the party in a cloud of blue smoke. When it cleared, Ben found that they were standing in the cathedral. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Haddie grinned, miming wiping some smoke off of his shoulder. I'll wait here for Mal's party, so you go to the front of the aisle, Ben. No seeing the bride before she walks down the aisle, after all. I still think that's nonsense. You're marrying a godling, Ben. Ancient tradition is pretty much their bread and butter up on Olympus. Haddie snorted as he went to go and stand by the door, with Jay and Harry. While not a part of the bridal party, Ben knew they wanted to surprise Mal by being some of the first people she saw. Come on, Chip chuckled. You better go up front. I think people are taking their seats, meaning Mal's going to be coming soon. It's showtime. Ben nodded and quickly made his way to the front, where Fairy Godmother was standing. She was to be the officiant, after all. Though, and honestly, it just occurred to me, why couldn't Dad be the officiant? Ben thought as he took his spot. As a former king, he'd be ordained and be able to officiate a wedding, right? Or, you know what, Uma could officiate it as well, since she's a captain. And I'm thinking too much again, aren't I? Nervous? Fairy Godmother whispered to Ben, as if she could see the gears in his head moving. Is it that obvious? Ben chuckled. Only to the people who know you, Fairy Godmother said, giving her former people a kind smile. You're going to be just fine, Ben. You and Mel clearly love each other. That much is certain. Ben returned the smile as he looked out over the filled cathedral. Dignitaries from all over Auradon were there, including most of the gods from Olympus. Honestly, it'd probably be easier to list the people who weren't in the room. He shot a small smile at Claudine and Henry, who were seated on the bride's side of the room, as were all of the VKs for that matter, including all of Mal's crew, some of whom had come over from the Isle for the day. Though it made sense. They knew Mal more while the AKs had grown up with Ben. Ben smiled and returned the small wave Ari gave him as the young girl saw him. He had to admit, he was happy that the girls were doing so well, despite the rough start they had had in life. With Audrey. That's enough thinking about Audrey at my wedding, Ben thought as the music started to fill the cathedral. I think a part of me will always miss her. After all, she was one of my oldest friends. But at the same time, after everything she did, she doesn't get to bring down the mood today. He smiled as he saw his adoptive sister coming down the aisle on Estelle's back, just as she had done for his wedding at the Enchanted Lake. And just like then, her giggle seemed to make the room brighter. Amir, Akio, and Haddie were next, each one walking in with Harriet, Evie, and Alexandria on their arms. Ben couldn't help but wonder if Mal had planned that last one on purpose. I can see Lucy's eyes gleaming in interest from here, Ben thought as he glanced over at the charming contingent. Alexandria better be ready for some intense interrogation from her sisters, since she looks rather comfortable on Hattie's arm. Wait, no one can read my thoughts now that I'm immortal, right? Relaxing slightly at receiving no reply from any of the Olympians regarding his question, Ben grinned as he saw Chip and Uma make their way down the aisle. Chip was probably the safest person to walk Uma down the aisle who wasn't Harry, if Ben was honest. Well, Harry or Jay or Haddie. Chip wasn't in any danger of getting hooked, so to speak. Ben's grin only grew as he saw Mal make her way down the aisle. All the guests standing up as she entered. Lord Hades walked with her on her right side, while Lady Persephone walked on her left. Mal had wanted it that way at their wedding at the Enchanted Lake, but the platform wasn't big enough to allow more than 2 people walking down it. Plus, this way the entire kingdom would get to see Mal be walked down the aisle by both her parents. Hi, Mal whispered as they reached him, reaching out to take his hand. Hi, Ben whispered back, taking her hand and guiding her to the centre in front of Fairy Godmother. He noticed that Mal had on a new bracelet. A charm bracelet, it looked like. Honestly, he didn't remember ever seeing Mal wearing it before. But he liked it. It was a gold bracelet with multiple charms dangling down from it. An apple with a bite out of it and a crown on top. a lightning bolt, a snowflake, a magic lamp with a tiger curled around it, a trident, a bow and arrow, a hook, a squid, a pair of bones crossed in an X, a pair of antlers, a blue ball of flames, a snake, a dragon, and a crest. The charms looked familiar, but Ben couldn't place where he had seen them before. There are crests, Ben thought in realization after a minute. The apple for Evie, the lightning bolt for Macaria, the snowflake for Akio, the lamp for Amir, the trident for Elle, the bow and arrow for Emma, the hook for Harry, the squid for Uma, the bones for Carlos, the antlers for Gil, the blue flames for Haddie, the snake for Jay, and the crest for me. He knew the dragon wasn't because Mal was connected to Maleficent, but because Mal was a dragon, both figuratively and literally. Thank you, Fairy Godmother said, bringing Ben back to the present as the music faded and the guests sat down. I'll keep this part short, I promise. I just want to say that the two people in front of me have come so far and have grown as only two people who are as deeply in love as they are can be. It has been an honor and a privilege to watch them grow, not only as a couple, but as individuals, and as our king and future queen. Please bring forth the rings. Ben smiled as Estelle proudly brought forth the rings, Genevieve giggling from her perch and dropping flower petals at her brother's feet. Ben, Fairy Godmother nodded, and gestured for Ben to proceed. Melinda Bertha, Ben said, his voice able to carry to every end of the cathedral, without the aid of a microphone. With this ring, I pledge everything I have to you. My life, my kingdom, my heart. I promise to always be there for you, to accept everything that you are, and to always put you first. Mal smiled as Ben slid the ring back onto her finger. It had felt wrong, not having her wedding ring on, even if it was just for the day. At least now, everything felt right once more. Benjamin Florian, she said, her voice carrying just as much as Ben's had. With this ring, I pledge to you all the days of my life, all my burdens and all my joys. I pledge to make sure you consider the options of having guards, and pledge my loyalty to you and the United States of Oregon and the Isle of the Lost. I promise to be my best for you, and share my secrets and keep yours, and to choose good always. Ben shook his head in amusement as Mal slipped his ring back onto his finger. He knew that the guard comment would carry over from their Enchanted Lake wedding. Do you, Ben, take Mal to be your wife, to love and cherish forever? Fairy Godmother asked, smiling at the two of them. I do, Ben nodded. And do you, Mal, take Ben to be your husband, to love and cherish forever? I do, Mal said with a small smile and nod of her head. And now, Fairy Godmother began, but her voice caught with unshed tears. Pausing for a moment, she began once more. And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Ben smiled as he pulled Mal close to him, his lips connecting to hers like a puzzle piece finding its mate. He couldn't be sure, but he thought he heard extra loud cheering from the cathedral. That would be Aphrodite. Mal chuckled as they broke apart. The cheering. I thought you'd be wondering about that. She elaborated at seeing the quizzical look on Ben's face. Ah, Ben nodded. That actually made sense now that he thought about it. So are you ready for some cloudberry cake with Zephyrian vanilla bean frosting? And strawberries? Ben chuckled. Yes, Mal, the cake still has strawberries. Good, Mal smiled. The cake that had been the best one she and Ben had tasted. Okay, she, Uma, Haddie, Harry, Jay, and Ben had tasted. But there'll be more than just cake, I'm assuming. Yeah, Jane said something about mini tacos and miniature peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Mal tilted her head in slight confusion. Why? It's one of my favorite types of sandwiches, Ben said as the couples made their way down the aisle. Akio must have told Jane and they slipped it into the menu. Why am I not surprised? Mal snorted in amusement. Mal snorted in amusement as everyone made their way to the reception, which was held at Beast Castle. Ben and Mal were going to take a few days and visit Belle's old village, so there'd be no need for the guests to rush out at the end of the evening. Ben smiled as he greeted everyone, Mal at his side and Estelle at hers. Genevieve was off playing with Ari and Paige, so Estelle was relieved of his horse duties. "I like your bracelet," Ben said after a few minutes. "Thanks." Mal smiled as she held up one of the charms to the light. "Jay, Harry and Uma got it for me. They wanted to add more crests, but the bracelet could only fit so many, and the wolf rats have a crew of 19 after all."
"Well, it's a beautiful bracelet," Ben said. "A bracelet fit for a queen."
Mal chuckled. "I'm not queen yet, Ben. Are you sure we can't just have a private ceremony, just us and our parents?" "Oh, and siblings, of course."
I know, Ben nodded. "It doesn't make much sense to have everyone come over for a ceremony right after they came for our wedding." Unfortunately, a few members of my council made the same argument, that it was made your induction into the court was a public one as well.
"You mean people might argue that it never happened?"
That's the one.
"Are people really that stupid?"
Ben chuckled. "Thankfully, with the dowry your father provided."
"You mean the 15 chests of gems, tiaras and other items he in no way needed to provide, other than the fact that he wanted to get one over on your dad?"
"Yep," Ben nodded. "Well, thankfully we can use some of that for your coronation, so it doesn't impact any of the citizens of Auradon. Don't worry, it's coming from the miscellaneous section of the budget."
"Good," Mal sighed. It had taken some work, but she, with Belle and Persephone, had managed to budget the dowry into usable amounts to put into Auradon. Of course, Mal made sure that the Isle got a sizable amount, even as kids and deserving adults continued to make their way to Auradon. Literacy and the arts each got a sizable amount as well, though Ben had to talk Mal out of denying funds to any library who prevented people from reading their books by guarding them with giant spiders. Though that had ended up being a conversation about why libraries would do that. It was then that Ben found out that such a practice had been done on the Isle. Part of him was horrified, while another part of him just wanted to see the giant spiders for himself. Side note, Ginny, really? I'm arachnophobic! Increasing the budget of the Royal Guard wasn't something anyone expected Mal to do, but Ben had suspected that a cue would put the bug in her ear. Though Ben didn't mind the increase. It allowed him the ability to have guards for his parents, Chip and Genevieve. Oh, and Gia too. She was as much a part of the family as Chip was. "You're thinking again," Mal teased, bringing Ben back to the present. "You know that's a dangerous pastime."
"Oh, well, forgive me, my queen," Ben teased her back. "Why don't we go and sit down and enjoy some of the delicious food before the dancing starts?"
Mal sighed and shook her head. "How many times do I have to tell you?"
I know,
Ben said with a chuckle as they made their way to the table.
"You don't dance."
He smiled and gave a small wave to Haddie, who was sitting next to his parents at the head table. The young teen was in the middle, with Lord Hades sitting on his right and Lady Persephone sitting on his left at the end. Not because Mal wanted to play favourites with her parents, as Lord Hades would be sitting next to her, but because Lady Persephone would be able to slip out if she needed to use the facilities due to her pregnancy.
"It's hard to believe, but I think both of our younger siblings will be about the same age,"
Ben thought as Haddie waved back.
"At least they'll have playmates. And they'll be able to play with Ari and Paige, though they'll be older. And in a couple of years they'll have Phil and Melody's son or daughter to play with."
They hadn't heard anything from Queen Ariel, Melody, Queen Aurora, King Philip Sr., King Eric or Phil about requesting the agreement to be nullified, so it was still in effect. Thankfully, though, it looked as if Phil and Melody were forming a romantic relationship, judging by how closely they were seated next to each other at their table. "Hey," Mal said, gently placing her hand on his. "Don't think about business. Not today."
Ben chuckled. "And I thought you couldn't read my mind since I'm not an Olympian."
"You're looking right at Phil and Melody, Benny. I can connect the dots there. Mal told him, but I haven't heard anything from Elle regarding Melody wanting to get out of the agreement. And Phil's apparently been working hard as his king lessons according to Claudine.
How is she doing? Any issues with her pregnancy?
None, Mal said with a smile, waving over at Henry and Claudine as she ate. Both Henry and Claudine are hoping for a girl, though. I mean, they'd love their child if they were a boy just as much, but...
I got it, Ben nodded.
Even though Claudine had been adopted by Aurora and Philip, she was still genetically a Frollo, and male Frollos didn't exactly have a good track record.
Back thoughts. No thinking about Freddie on my wedding day.
Everyone continued to eat and chat until the DJ came up on the microphone. Okay, royals, lords and ladies, Lonnie said, and Ben chuckled.
I thought Lonnie was going to be head of security, he teased, looking over at Mal.
Mal shrugged. Harry didn't end up being one of your groomsmen, so I asked him instead. Lonnie was happy to be DJ, and weren't you there when we asked her?
My mind might have been on the council meeting I had right after that,
Ben said sheepishly, and Mal shook her head. I am so thankful Dean came up with that system for your paperwork. Otherwise you'd be half asleep right now, knowing King Workaholic.
I mean, he doesn't have to read through the paperwork and provide a summary of what it is so that I know what I'm signing.
Ben, yes he does. Our paperwork's doubled when we got into wedding planning, and knowing you the way I do, you'd have fallen asleep at your desk had he not come up with that. If the bride, groom, mother of the groom and father of the bride could come onto the dance floor, it's time for the mother-son, father-daughter dance, Lonnie said, preventing Ben from issuing a response. We're doing it at the same time? Mal asked as they made their way to the floor.
Why not? Ben shrugged,
smiling as he took his mum's hand. Mal shook her head but smiled as Hades took her hand and pulled her close.
For all the times you stood by me, for all the truth you made me see, for all the joy you brought to my life, for all the wrong that you made right.
You know, if you look at the screen, you'll see Chip's gift to you, Belle whispered to Ben. Ben turned his head and smiled as he saw a photo montage of him and Belle, which would transition into photos of Mal and Hades when Mal was younger.
How did he?
Lady Persephone was quite the photographer, Belle said, smiling as Ben twirled her around the floor. And she was happy to work with Chip on this. Oh, I remember that picture. It was a rare rainy day in Oridon, where you were so disappointed you couldn't go to play with your friends. So we snuck into the library and made a blanket fort and just read.
Until Dad came in wondering where we were because we missed the royal luncheon.
Ben chuckled as the memory came flooding back. He had made a pile of books from the bottom shelves, and Belle had grabbed books from the very top.
I remember he had thought we were mad for missing the luncheon for all the books.
You remember what I told him? Belle asked, looking up at Ben.
Ben smiled as he nodded. You said that they weren't just books, that they were whole kingdoms and worlds. They were perspectives and opinions he couldn't offer, and lives he hadn't lived. They were more valuable than any gold coin, and more important than any luncheon, and that he should know that as king.
But Ben's favourite part of the memory had been how his dad had reacted to that. How his dad's eyes had sparkled in delight, and how he had lifted his mum into his arms. How he told Belle that she should know how much he loved her for that. That had been the moment that Ben knew he had wanted what his parents had. And now he had it.
Dad must have taken that photo before he came up to us, Ben thought with a smile. Not unless Chip has the ability to go back in time and take that picture.
You're the one who held me up, never let me fall. You're the one who saw me through it all. Persephone smiled as she watched Mal and Hades dance together. She was fine not being out there. She knew that at some point it would be her turn to dance with her son at this wedding. Oh, Hades would grumble, but Persephone knew there was no way to stop the sands of time from falling. Glancing over at Beast. Persephone couldn't help but give a sad smile as she saw his eyes shining with unshed tears. King Beast, Persephone said, keeping her voice soft to prevent anyone from overhearing.
Oh!
Beast cleared his throat and blinked away the tears.
Apologies. I didn't realise.
Persephone gave a small smile and gently rested her hand on his shoulder. She didn't have to say anything. She knew what he was thinking about. Unlike Persephone, Beast would never get his chance at a father-daughter dance. Well, actually he would, with Genevieve, but that didn't mean he wasn't actively missing the daughter that he had lost. Wasn't lost in his own thoughts about how her wedding might have been like. Mel? Persephone thought, an idea coming to her. Yeah, Mum? You think your father and Queen Belle would terribly mind if 2 more people intruded on your dance? What, you mean make it a father, mother, daughter, mother, father, son dance? Mal thought with a small chuckle. That is exactly what I mean, actually. Persephone chuckled mentally. I know it might look awkward, but since King Beast, I get it, Mum. Mal thought, looking over at Persephone and giving her a small smile. Persephone watched once the two were close enough for Mal to do so. Her daughter nudged King Ben and tilted her head towards Persephone and Beast were standing. Thankfully, King Ben didn't take too long to understand what Mal was suggesting, as not a minute later, both of them were walking over and taking their respective parent by the hand and joining them in another miniature huddle. You gave me wings and made me fly. You touched my hand, I could touch the sky. I lost my faith, you gave it right back to me. You said no star was out of reach. You stood by me and I stood tall. I had your love, I had it all. I'm grateful for every day you gave me. But maybe I don't know that much. But I know this much is true. I was blessed because I was loved by you. You're not upset you're not on the floor too? Alexandria asked Hattie, having made her way over to him.
Nah. Hattie shook his head. It's Mal's day. She should get to dance with Mum and Dad. Besides, at some point it'll be everyone on the floor.
Well, I hope you save the dance for me.
Of course, Hattie nodded. I think as a bridesmaid and groomsman we're legally required to dance together.
And as princess, I should do my best to follow the laws of the land.
Alexandria nodded.
And you should too, Prince of the Underworld.
Hattie shook her head. We're best friends, Alex. You don't have to use my title.
Oh, but it's so much fun seeing your reaction when I use it, Alexandria said, chuckling at the face Hattie had made as he heard that. You were my strength when I was weak. You were my voice when I couldn't speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best there was in me, lifted me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith 'cause you believed I'm everything I am, because you loved me. The music ended and the families left the floor, but not before giving each other a big hug. Mal made her way over to Hattie, pulling him to her side. Enjoying yourself, little brother?
Considering I'm taller than you, Mally, I think I should be calling you the little one, Hattie chuckled. But yeah, I am. You and Ben throw a good party.
I'm glad, Mal nodded. Hard to believe the Olympus contingent actually showed up.
I think Mum threatened them.
That makes sense.
Hattie chuckled. Well, threatened all except for Aphrodite, I should say. You know she'd show up regardless, being the goddess of love and all.
Ah, yes, our cousin would enjoy a wedding. Mal nodded, before looking over at their parents. Hard to believe that soon 2 will become 3, you know?
I know. Hattie nodded. Boy or girl?
What do you mean?
You think Mum's going to have a boy or a girl?
Ah, Mal said, then shrugged. In all honesty, I thought you were going to be a girl, so I think I'm going to hedge my bets and say boy this time.
Hattie chuckled. As much as I'd love a brother, I already have 2, with Jay and Harry. Besides, something tells me the girls are going to outnumber the guys in our family.
You wanna put some money on it?
5 drachmas says Mum has a girl.
Persephone chuckled as she and Hades walked over. Please tell me you two aren't betting on the gender of what your sibling was at Mal's wedding. Where else would we bet on it? Mal asked. The appointment where you found out?
She's got a point, Steph, Hades said as Persephone shook her head. How are you feeling, by the way? Need me to get you anything?
Hades, you've asked that every 5 minutes since we arrived, Persephone said, and then looked over at Mal. Be prepared for your father to be like this when you have kids. Duly noted, Mum. Mal chuckled. The reception continued on with dancing and frivolity until night fell on Auradon. Giving their goodbyes, Mal and Ben made their way over to the castle near Belle's old village. Thankfully, a guest room had been set up for them. While Ben was the king and would have to be able to make the master bedroom, he argued that it was weird to be in the same bed as his parents. Something Mal secretly agreed with. She was also more than a little glad her wedding night wasn't going to occur in Ben's room at Beast's castle. Not unless they removed the portraits of Belle and Beast right above Ben's bed. Hard to believe we're married now, Mal whispered, pulling herself out of her thoughts. Officially, that is.
Yeah, but I love it,
Ben whispered as he slowly undid the zipper of Mal's dress.
Tell me when you want me to stop, or if you even want to do this. Last thing I want is for you to be uncomfortable.
Ben, of course I do, Mal said gently. You could never make me uncomfortable.
Well, if you're sure.
And I'm going to end the chapter there, okay? Okay, that's just where I'm comfortable ending it. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I really liked that. A lovely wedding. That song's actually in a chapter I did in my Trolls videos, so I did know the rhythm a bit. It took me a minute to get into the swing of it, but I like that song. It's very beautiful. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.